So in the midst of all of the Olympic Games controversy and drama, they somehow, someway managed to slip in a little rumor about Olympic esports. And as somebody who spent their life competing to some level, to some degree in competitive esports, I was very intrigued by this. As a matter of fact, I was very excited to hear this. However, as I started to dig into it, I realized that there's more to it than meets the eye. They're telling us yes, but they're also telling us no. And that doesn't make any sense. So right along with me, let's break this one down.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back, everybody, to the newest episode of Right Click, hosted by Byrdman. And like you heard, we're going to be talking about the Olympics. And I got to be honest with you, I was really excited to make this video the moment I heard about this potential esports Olympic merger. Not that I'm not less excited to be making this video now. I'm just a little more bummed about what the contents are going to be. The reason being is I know I've talked about this before. I know I talked about this in episode 1. But the things that made me fall in love with competitive esports, specifically Call of Duty for sure, but esports broadly. It was X Games. X Games in 2013 took a chance on Call of Duty, and it was a phenomenal event. It genuinely, objectively was a well put together event, and it was fun. And it was cool to see something new in something like X Games. Now, X Games has always kind of appealed to more of that crowd. I'll grant you that. Skateboarding, skiing, that kind of stuff. Like that more, suburban kind of crowd. That's right in line where I fell. I used to like skateboarding, stuff like that. That's why I loved watching X Games. So it was a natural merger. But the thing is, I was honestly expecting to hear, at least from the Olympic Committee, about esports long ago because of the influence of X Games. Well, so we finally heard on a semi-official level about their thoughts. And if you're anything like me, saw a million and one different notifications of esports in the Olympics. And I was like, heck yeah, that's awesome. Finally. It's not that simple. Unfortunately, it is not that simple. Now, I will say, I do think this is a step in the right direction, and we're going to break down what these whole explanations that they're giving us really mean. But I will say, I do think it sets a good precedent for moving forward. I think X Games kicked that off. I think that if we can really see it through with the Olympics, it would be great. Now, here's what I want to really talk about. We're gonna talk about what their reasoning is for the decisions that they're making with the Olympic Games, and I'm gonna show you some articles. And for my folks that are listening and not watching, I'm gonna read through some of this stuff, and at the very least give you the cliff notes of this, because listen, these articles are important because, as it turns out, not a lot of people took the time to break down the claim that esports is coming to the Olympics, and the Olympics had the Olympic Committee, the IOC specifically, had a whole heck of a lot more to say about it than just that. And it's disappointing. I'm just gonna go ahead and preface that by, for somebody like me, this is disappointing. Again, step in the right direction, but disappointing. Let me explain why. I'm gonna swap over here. So I've got this from verifythis.com, and I don't typically choose a verify whatever, but I got to tell you, this was actually a well put together article. Now you can see, and if you can't, I'll read it to you, but the headline of this article is "No, esports haven't been added to the Olympic Games." Subtitle: The IOC has created the Olympic Esports Games, which will be a separate games held in 2025 and not part of the Summer or Winter Olympics. Now, obviously, right, that's the big headline. That's the big thing, because everybody went, esports, Olympics, yeah. And then you have this, which I will show some cross-reference here, but this is a really great just summarization of the whole ordeal. No, it hasn't been added to the Olympic Games in the traditional sense. Basically, not what the X Games did. The X Games just went, okay, you're part of it now. Congratulations. And that was great, especially back in the time period that they were doing it. But the Olympics did not do that. As a matter of fact, they're handling this with a level of hesitancy that is coming from what I believe to be a very political standpoint. And I am definitely going to break this one down in detail because this one gets me hotted up a little bit. From the Olympic side of things, specifically the Olympic side of things, I'm going to read some of this from this article. And it goes like this. Esports, which are video game competitions, have grown in popularity over the last couple of decades. That growth in popularity has earned it the attention of some of the biggest names in sports, including the International Olympics Committee. And this is the thing that we're really talking about here. So in 2022, the IOC, which organizes the Olympic Games, started its plan to, quote, further engage with video game communities. With the start of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games, esports Olympic Games has been a popular Google search topic. And sidebar here, that is no surprise to me. People are, at this point, expecting it. Carrying on. People wondering if esports has been added to the Summer Games in Paris. Now, you can go and look at the actual breakdown of the lists and scheduling and all of this, and thankfully they actually do list these sources and cross-reference them with the IOC and the National Olympic Committee of Saudi Arabia. And ultimately, like it says, no, it hasn't been added, but they have created a separate event. And what this really boils down to is a lukewarm attitude of what esports is. And I'm just going to be, I'm going to get brutally honest with some of this because I'm gonna have a lot of people disagree with me, especially from demographics who are not as in tune with video games and esports. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing wrong with that. And I know a lot of young people who spend a lot of time playing video games get extraordinarily defensive on that. And I think that's a waste of time. I think that's useless. I think there is a bridge the gap, meet in the middle kind of handshake that can be had here, because at its core, this does not have to be a political or a contentious conversation. However, I am not going to pull punches with how I feel about this and the experiences that I specifically have in this realm. I know that is a long-winded preface, but I believe this is important because this is truly a lukewarm hesitancy from the Olympic Committee, and they are being pushed around by, what is it called, the National Olympic Committee of Saudi Arabia. Now, they both said, IOC and the National Olympic Committee of Saudi Arabia have said work is now beginning on selecting a city and a venue for the 2025 event, the specific timing of the event, the video games to be included, and the qualification process. And here is where I start to get really bent out of shape with this. Because for me, I look at this and at its face value, yet again, I go, okay, moving forward, right? Like we are moving forward. But here is the problem. As this says, the largest most watched esports event usually feature popular strategy games like League of Legends, shooters like Counter-Strike or Call of Duty, and fighting games like Street Fighter. All very fair. On an international scale, those are the 800-pound gorillas. There's some more you could add to it, absolutely, but they are, in this article, they are correct. Now, they have organized events like this before, as it says, including one hosted just last year in Singapore called the Olympic Esports Series. It featured 9 games not typically associated with large esports events, but based around traditional sports like archery, tennis, and baseball. And I will actually pull that up here momentarily because that is... I actually have the full breakdown of that whole thing and the schedule and the games and the players, yada yada, and I'll show you that. But this is where it starts to rub me the wrong way. So one event in the 2023 Olympic Esports Series, and they are dubbing this shooting. I want to emphasize that they're dubbing this category shooting. Did feature a more popular video game that has been part of large esports events in the past, Fortnite. Neither the IOC nor the National Olympic Committee of Saudi Arabia clarified if they plan to pick similar titles for the 2025 Olympic Esports Games. I have more information on this, and this is where it really bothers me. This is my stickler in all of this. They have chosen these words very carefully. We've already established that yes, they're adding it, but they're doing it in a very lukewarm manner. What the difference now is in what we're breaking down is the words and the decisions that they're choosing are very specific. and they're nonsense. I want to make this very clear. Choosing this esports series and having one actual esport in it and calling it shooting, and for the love of God, shooting being Fortnite. Listen, there's a reason Fortnite has the reach that it has. If you are not familiar with Fortnite, please go look it up. It is the most popular game in the world, and it is for a reason. They did a phenomenal job making this game something that can outreach to 1 to 100. Genuinely. And it is a cartoony battle royale. You don't die, you're eliminated like it's like a cartoon. All right? They chose Fortnite and shooting very specifically. You are going to hear me say this multiple times because this is so freaking important, because this is garbage. This is political garbage in your face. And this is where I can't back them on this anymore, because they are choosing shooting because they have made it very clear, and this garbage National Olympic Committee of Saudi Arabia has been throwing their weight around to discredit what esports is, at the same time make some political statement about children and video games. This is garbage. I want to make this very clear. We are talking about video games being put into this quote-unquote esports division, its own separate thing, away from the actual Olympics with all of its notoriety, with all of its rewards. No, you don't get any of that. You get a medal, and that's it. And they're putting it with equestrian, golf, tennis, motorsports. Okay. If you want to do something separate that's outside the traditional realm of Olympic sports, I got no problem with that. But this is intentional language, and this is intentional language that is designed to make a statement, because you're putting something that is not severe and you're making it sound severe, i.e. Fortnite calling it shooting. This crawls up my spine like nothing else, because here's where this conversation really truly goes. They are trying to make a point that if you put this level of depth and width to esports, traditional esports being shooters, sorry, it is, they are deeming that there's some level of influence that they would have on young minds pulling triggers. Let that one sink in, because I'm going to be very clear, that is garbage. That is nonsense, and that is elites lying to you for their own narrative. That's trash, because we have heard for years all of these soccer moms that want to say, oh, it's these stupid shooters are causing our kids to be violent. No, your crappy parenting is. Because on multiple levels, let's start with this. Let's just back up. Let's start with this. This is Oxford University. This is an official study done by Oxford University that shows violent video games found not to be associated with adolescent aggression. Researchers at the Oxford Internet Institute, the University of Oxford, have found no relationship between aggressive behavior in teenagers and the amount of time spent playing violent video games. And this whole thing breaks down Professor Andrew Przybylski. I can't pronounce that. Professor Andrew is what we're going with. It breaks down his entire research data, even so far as giving you the link to the full paper. And it shows that this argument of video games are making children violent is complete nonsense. And this is my favorite part. He says a cherry-picked result can add undue weight to the moral panic surrounding video games. This registered study approach is a safeguard against this. God bless this professor. Not something you get to say a lot in the academic world anymore. Seriously. Because this is ultimately what this whole thing with the Olympic Games is about. Because if you look at what the Olympic Esports Series is, you can see you have archery, baseball, cycling, chess, just dance, motorsport, sailing, shooting. Look right here, shooting, Fortnite. taekwondo, and tennis. Their half-baked, pathetic excuse for esports is e-baseball, chess.com, Just Dance, a dance competition that's esports because it's Just Dance, Gran Turismo 7, Virtual Regatta, Fortnite, Virtual Taekwondo, Tennis Clash. This is stuff that's not in person. This is the equivalent of Wii Bowling. I want to make this so undeniably clear. This has nothing to do with esports. This is their way of trying to pass off esports as something of, look at us, we're being with the times, and you're too stupid to understand the difference. And you know where they screwed up? They put Fortnite as a shooting category. It's not shooting. That's cherry-picked language. Just as this professor says, there is a multitude of research data that proves video games do not cause violence. They just don't. I have an article here by The Guardian. There's a study shows it dates back to 2008, before this even became a widespread conversation amongst people who don't know truly what they're talking about. There's stuff that reaches back farther and farther than any of these people expected to have this conversation with. And it blows my mind that we're at the point now where they can sit here, and the Olympic Committee can sit here and openly say that the Saudi Arabian, what is it? The National Olympic Committee of Saudi Arabia deems that esports, because they have titles of first-person shooters, are too violent to be broadcast on an international scale. I want to make something very, very uncomfortably known here. If you want to see what kind of widespread impact video games have, go look at large-scale competitions for esports and see their viewership numbers. I was just in one. I was just there at one of the biggest in the Call of Duty realm. The outlying watch parties that were allowed by Activision to commentate over the stream of the games outside of the official stream, the unofficial connections, had hundreds of thousands of concurrent viewers. The main stream from Activision had hundreds of thousands of viewers. Internationally speaking, especially on the Asian countries like I mentioned, hundreds of thousands of viewers for decades. For decades, they have been doing this. And we are still back around to this whole Americanized idea that because we have had a history of crappy parenting, because that is what it is, that we have to pass the buck off to video games as what's causing children to be violent, when there's not a single shred of evidence from any layman or any professor or any doctorate or any professional paper, not a shred of evidence has anything to say about video games being the equivalency to violence in adolescence. If that was the case, I've spent my freaking life doing it, man. I turned out all right. Haven't murdered anybody. Don't plan on doing it. Don't think about it. Crazy how that works. Why? Because my parents taught me a healthy and rational way of watching TV, of playing video games, of reading, of all of these things to be a responsible individual as they grew into adulthood. I would say my parents knocked that one out of the freaking park, man. You know what? I would also say that about my wife's parents. I would say that about the parents of most of the people that I grew up with. All of the people that I've teamed with. But where are we at now? And that's a real question. That is not a rhetorical question. And this is something I want people, if nothing else, I want people to reflect on where we are at culturally speaking. We have spent so many decades looking at the Olympics as the height of human ability. And you know what? For a long time, and still today, even regardless of all of this controversy, I still believe that to be true. But we cannot sit here and act like people are only skilled in a certain number of things. This isn't underwater basket weaving, for crying out loud, man. This is stuff that makes people millionaires. I just watched 4 individuals win $800,000 in a $2 million prize pool. I've won money doing this from my talent, and it wasn't anywhere near what I just watched these guys do. What are we doing? What are we teaching? What is the influence that we are passing down? I don't have kids, but this is part of the influence, right? That's what this is about. So we have to look internally and understand that if we want the Olympics to right the ship, like the complete 180 that we want from this garbage that we've been seeing, from this absolute defamation of the Last Supper, just the sacrilege that's coming out of this, the trans crap that's being thrown into people's faces on international television. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. This came from that opening ceremony with the guy's genitals hanging out of his skirt. But we're too focused on making the point that esports make children violent. I guarantee you every one of those guys that's good at fencing probably don't go around stabbing people. Just my 2 cents. And this is the crux of it, right? We've spent a lot of time and effort, and I would like to think I'm part of the group that spent a lot of time and effort trying to open people's eyes to what esports is, what it can mean, what it does, and the apolitical nature of what it should be, just like with the rest of video games. But just like everything else, it has become a tool. It has become a tool for a narrative of conflict and a tool for a narrative of, frankly, lies. And this is the final echelon of competition where they can look at us in the face on an international scale and try to push the narrative that video games are making kids violent. I guarantee you nobody's won $2 million from a Just Dance competition. And if I'm wrong, by God, I'm wrong. But they also don't lie about what it is, like they did with Fortnite. And for them to sit here and say, the IOC and the Saudi Arabian convention, to say, no, it's too violent. It's too violent. We don't want to be a part of that. We can't have shooting. There's shooting in the Olympics. There's archery in the Olympics. There's fencing in the Olympics. That's swords. If you're attempting to draw conclusions for that being separate in ideology, you've lost your friggin' mind. I can't sit here and abide by that. So here's what I want to leave you with. We see what they have done to taint and twist the Olympics. I have seen firsthand what the X Games did when they made Call of Duty a cornerstone gaming competition. And it carried weight, and it meant a lot. I have seen that directly and the positive outcome that has come alongside that. And I am watching the Olympics not just absolutely take a dump on all of that. They have the gall at this point. They have the gall to lie to your face and say that we can raise your kids better than you can. We can influence people. We can tell people what to think. And by the way, sacrilege is okay. I don't know about you, but for me, as an individual, as this right here, as a ruffian, I cannot sit idly by and just waste away on the nonsense that people in elite positions are trying to tell us. I still stand by the fact that everything stems from the nuclear family. It just does. We've taken that and balled that up and thrown it in the trash for decades now. And the nuclear family is what righted a lot of the problems that the Olympic Committee, that Joe Blow and the soccer mom down the street that says no more video games with the pickets, that's what they're all trying to say. And I don't know about anybody else, but the nuclear family that I came from taught me right from wrong, taught me good from bad, showed me what a moral code and a moral compass is. And I have seen nothing from the Olympic Committee recently that is even remotely in line with that. To me, I look at this as the same as when Netflix released Cuties. If you want to say that's too far blown, fine, but think about it. Because we all know what Cuties was. They just had a man half naked posing as a woman while desecrating the Last Supper. So no, I don't think that's separate at all. And when they can sit here and merge that and try to taint the name of esports and taint the name of first-person shooters and call Fortnite shooting, no, man, I'm not playing that game. That's on us. That's on the influence that we have. That's on the influence we have on our fellow peers, on our people, on our friends, on our children, on our parents, on our grandparents, and so on. It's a collective motion that we have to set forth. And this is the biggest stage possible. What started as I think esports are getting big in the Olympics, went from that's cool to this is completely tainted narrative. And I'm going to leave it with that. I want you to dwell on that because it's huge. That's more than huge because its tendrils reach so far beyond just what you see on TV. On the Olympics, on a live stream, it reaches so much farther beyond. But I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Right Click. Again, my name is Byrdman. Please go reach out to us on social media, the Byrdman _. That's my handle on Twitter and pretty much everything else. I will be streaming on Twitch as well. I'll probably be streaming on the Right Side website as well. I'd love for you guys to come hang out. We'll answer questions. We'll talk about things. We'll talk about this. Go reach out to us on the Right Side website, rightsidemedia.org. And just come talk to us, man. Send us an email. Shoot me an email. I'd love to talk to anybody. Just hit us up because this is the kind of stuff that we need to interface and we need to talk about. But for now, I'm going to leave it at that. Again, my name is Byrdman. I hope you guys all enjoyed this. I'm going to be releasing a special episode outside of the normal Friday releases, all about let's call it a vlog of my time at Call of Duty Champs. You can see some of this memorabilia behind me. We're going to break down all of it. It's going to be a fun, lighthearted video, something outside the normal realm of what I do. But for now, enjoy this. I will see you guys next Friday. Go check out the newest article that we posted because it is a good one. Gives you a little background on me. It's rightsidemedia.com/articles. Go check it out. It has been a pleasure. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday.